In conclusion, judging The Lion King as a product by itself, is it a Jungle Emperor ripoff? The answer is no. While there are some similarities, they are very minor and superficial at best, and both franchises are vastly different from one another in terms of story and characters, and not exact copies of each other. Did Disney steal the concept from Jungle Emperor and they deny it? The answer is unsubstantiated. Unfortunately, this is a question we may never find an answer to. The higher-ups at Disney all deny the accusations, and those who worked on the movie insist it wasn't even brought up or mentioned during production. And with a tagline such as Disney's first original story, they can just confess that it was a ripoff without losing their credibility. It doesn't help with what happened with the infamous Fantasia Film Festival of Toronto 1997 incident, in which Disney issued a cease and desist order to a screening of the 1997 Jungle Emperor Leo movie. What? Either someone at Disney seriously never heard of this property and mistook the movie for a knockoff, which doesn't help that this same movie used a lot of similar imagery from The Lion King, didn't know what it was due to not using the Kimba name, or was a way to avoid more trouble regarding the allegations, but doing this sure didn't help the matter. Usually Disney would be open to declare a movie is based on a property, like A Bug's Life being inspired by The Magnificent Seven or The Seven Samurai, so it does sound weird that for just this case they would deny basing it on Jungle Emperor, unless they were honest about it, and it's all one huge coincidence since those two stories do occur in the same setting, Africa, and they use the same animal stereotypes that lives there as their characters, and Hamlet was really their main source of inspiration for the movie. Was The Lion King intended to be a Jungle Emperor remake, but was changed due to licensing issues? Again, unsubstantiated, but it's not a far possibility. There were instances where stories were adapted but had to change names and looks because they didn't have the rights for these characters, with the most famous example we have is Nosferatu, which was an adaptation of Dracula but without the original names. Osamu Tezuka himself went through this issue when Mushi Studio went bankrupt, and a lot of Tezuka's own characters were in legal limbo and he couldn't use them for animation for a while. Copyrights are weird, I know. He was working for Toei Animation for a certain time, and he wanted to make a colored version of Astro Boy, but he could not secure the rights at the time, and to avoid missing his deadline that he was facing, he plagiarized his own work and created this rather obscure series titled Jet on Mars, a series that shared a lot of similarities with Astro Boy but under different designs and names. And while Jet on Mars didn't catch on, it helped him in getting the rights for Astro Boy back and established his second studio, Tezuka Productions, which then led to the real Astro Boy remake he wanted to make from the start. With Tezuka himself creating a copy of his own work due to rights issues, who's to say Disney didn't attempt the same when they started working on The Lion King? Sadly, all what we have are statements released to the public, and anything else would remain secret unless there's a whistleblower brave enough to come out and break NDAs by telling the truth and risk a lawsuit from Disney for releasing this info without permission. For now, this will remain a question looking for an answer. There's this piece from the transcript of the 1993 Prodigy session in which Roy E. Disney says Kimba, and some are using this as evidence that it was going to be a Jungle Emperor adaptation and Simba was indeed going to be Kimba, but it contradicts with the screenplays and concept art that were made back in 1990, where you can see Simba's name was Simba from the beginning. So my take here that either Roy E. Disney said the name wrong, which I doubt it was the case, or the one who typed the transcript misheard the name and typed Kimba instead of Simba without knowing the full context. But if Disney really did steal the idea, then yes, they are wrong in doing this. However, there is one major aspect that we need to address, and that is our good friend Jeffrey Katzenberg. If we recall, Katzenberg was one of the people who first conceived the idea of the movie next to Roy E. Disney and Peter Schneider in 1988. And to this day, Katzenberg's name is still attached to the movie, with some saying he was the sole creator of the movie. But as shown during the history part, Katzenberg was barely part of the production. Roy E. Disney mentioned in an interview that Katzenberg was taking too much credit for doing little to nothing during the Renaissance era. And looking back at the production list of the movie, you can say he was wrong, as Katzenberg's name was nowhere to be seen there. He wasn't the director, producer, executive producer, associate producer, screenplay writer, or writer in general. yet he is still credited as an important contributor to the movie even after leaving Disney. There was also the infamous incident when he planned to become the new president of Disney and promising Michael Eisner to be his second-in-command when he takes Frank Will's place if he did his part by promoting him when the position is open. And when the unfortunate helicopter incident of 1994 that killed Frank Will occurred, Eisner took the job instead of promoting Katzenberg to take it as promised. Now, Eisner did say that Katzenberg's plan was wrong and could hurt his job before the incident, so you could say Eisner didn't agree to his plan from the beginning. With the rising tension between Katzenberg and the Disney committee, with the overall agreement about his ego making him a troublemaker and Eisner revealing his plans, it was decided that it's best for Katzenberg to leave Disney. Now, I can't confirm if Katzenberg left Disney on his free will, or was forced to quit, or was simply fired due to multiple sources of this case with their own version of the story, but the point remains that he left Disney in bitter terms. But if you ask me, I say he was fired. Why? Because later on, Katzenberg sued Disney for breaching their contract by not paying him his bonus, which amounted to 2% of royalties of the movies he worked on within the time with the company. And won. Yes, Disney lost a lawsuit against them and they settled to pay Katzenberg $250 million. This proves the Mars Empire is not invincible. But that's not the end of the story. Do you know what Katzenberg did after leaving Disney? He founded DreamWorks Studios. And for a while, what was DreamWorks known for? Copying Disney and Pixar films. Now, is there a link between all of this and our main subject? Perhaps. John Lasseter, the director of Pixar at the time, was one of Katzenberg's friends and he stayed in touch with him after his departure from Disney. During the production of Toy Story, Lasseter paid visit to Katzenberg and he revealed to him his upcoming plan after Toy Story to use an old Disney movie pitched from 1988 that wasn't used before called Army Ants, later adapted to A Bug's Life, and he had high hopes in it thinking it'll be groundbreaking for the animation industry. But little did Lasseter know that Katzenberg would use that concept for himself without telling Lasseter about it. Lasseter did not expect his best friend to betray his trust and steal his idea and use it for his own movie, which ended up as Ants, that was also released before A Bug's Life. He said he should have noticed the signs when Katzenberg kept asking him on more details, including the release date, but he didn't see his plan coming because he trusted Katzenberg to be about this. Katzenberg admitted his plans for the movie, but he denied that he stole the idea from Lasseter. Maybe he didn't steal it directly from him, but he still used the same pitch Lasseter was going to use for his movie right after he was told about it. Now to make this clear, Ants was based on the old concept of Army Ants more than a direct copy of A Bug's Life. Army Ants was about a pacifist ant living in a militarized colony, which does sound closer to Ants' plot involving the worker ants fighting against the tyranny of the soldier ants, rather than A Bug's Life that dealt with all ants fighting for their independence from the parasitic grasshoppers. But this doesn't change the fact that Katzenberg made this movie as a payback to Disney. DreamWorks planned to release their first animated feature, The Prince of Egypt, but the problem was the release schedule was the same weekend A Bug's Life was going to be released on. They asked Disney to reschedule A Bug's Life release to give their new studio a bit of a chance in the market, but they refused even after they were personally invited to DreamWorks for further negotiations. So in an act of revenge, or so to speak, Katzenberg rescheduled Ants to be released months ahead of the initial schedule, and therefore, Ants came out before A Bug's Life, beating it in the race. Though even that point got its share of doubts, as according to Ants writers, the original 1999 release date was fake, and it was intended to be 1998 from the beginning. Katzenberg was practically the kid who copied your homework and made his presentation in class before your turn, and he didn't betray the trust of anybody. He did it to someone who trusted him and thought of him as his friend when no one else was. Now just like The Lion King and Jungle Emperor, both Ants and A Bug's Life ended up as completely different takes on a similar idea. Ants was more of a civil and class conflict and adult in tone with more realistic looking designs, while A Bug's Life was more about liberation from slavery and was more family friendly and cartoony looking. Ants was received well by critics, while A Bug's Life was received well by audience. And if you ask me, I do like Ants over A Bug's Life. Regardless, If Katzenberg shamelessly stole Disney and Pixar's thunder with A Bug's Life by making ants and releasing it before A Bug's Life, and admitted in doing so, who is to say he didn't do the same thing with Jungle Emperor? This is a known case of Katzenberg's shady history with Disney and the petty feud they were having. And unlike the Lion King's case, where the debate is still going and cannot be confirmed, this is well documented and the people involved in it were open about it. And for years to come, DreamWorks would gain the reputation as Pixar's copycats and directly competing with them by releasing movies with similar themes 2 years to come, or basically shitting on Disney like in Shrek until they managed to find their own footings, with franchises like Kung Fu Panda and How to Train Your Dragon. Now, while working on this project, I came to this conclusion. The idea, or concept that tells you what comes first automatically makes it the best, or if something copying another makes it automatically inferior, is an idea that I don't necessarily agree with. While the original is respected for being the creative one, or basically the one who created the idea first, I feel it's unfair to use that as an excuse to trash what comes next or whatever uses a similar idea. Let me explain what I mean. As humans, it's within our nature to improve ourselves. We love to be creative and explore new possibilities. But if we limit ourselves by not taking an already existing idea and improve that one, we're doing a disservice to ourselves. Look at the technology we use today. We are so advanced because we kept taking old ideas and experimented even further on them, and we're still trying to improve them even further. But imagine if someone said, you can make your own version of the light bulb because the original exists, or you can be an explorer because Columbus did it before you. That would be too nearsighted and a ridiculous thing to say, right? Well, media is the same thing. Imagine if we said we can't have JoJo's Bizarre Adventures because Fist of the North Star came first. Or we can't have My Hero Academia because we have One Punch Man. Or Jackie Chan can't be a martial artist actor because Bruce Lee came before him. Despite these examples having similar things to one another, they're all different takes on an idea. We have a comic book about a superpowered alien man, but what if there was a comic book about a hero with no powers? We have a hero who cherishes his secret identity, but what if there was a hero who didn't have a secret identity? We have a lot of comic books about heroes, but why can't we make a comic book about villains? You get what I mean? Just because someone came up with an idea first, that doesn't mean it's the only version allowed to exist. What's important isn't the main source, it's the final product. There are more ways to write your story, and no one said you can make your own version with a twist of that concept. Unless you own the copyrights or trademarks, but that's a different topic. That's why we have the deconstruction and reconstruction trends, to take something out of its usual place and put it in a setting where it usually doesn't work, or make it the opposite of its original image. Whenever you have a movie, there's always the commenter who says, why didn't they do this or that? Well, you can make your own take of these events and write your own conclusion to that to reach your own expectations. Megamind comes to mind, no pun intended, as it's a movie made based on the question, what if Lex Luthor defeated Superman? There are also DC's Elseworld and Marvel's What If stories, and many alternate continuities that explores ever-growing different ideas. People dread the words reboot and remake, thinking the originals are sacred and perfect and should be messed with, and the new versions are automatically a failure, even before they see them. But we did witness reboots that surpassed the originals by being more creative and injecting them with new concepts never been explored in the originals, or being more faithful to their source material. Yes, this can also go to these shoddy knockoff movies and for whatever creativity they bring to the table. Even if these reboots were to fail, credit is still due for trying to do something different that wasn't done before, or taking scrapped concepts weren't used in the original for reasons like budget, insufficient technology, or real-life events and make them a reality. An example of that would be the Nightmare of Elm Street reboot, in which used the concept of Freddy being not just a child murderer, but also a child molester, which wasn't used in the original out of respect to child molestation incidents at the time, and worries that Wes Craven was exploiting the incidents for his movie. Long-running shows with multiple parts or sequels falls into this as well. It's not rare to have discussions on which part was the better one, whether it was Doctor Who, Star Trek, Gundam, Transformers, Digimon, Ultraman, Power Rangers, etc., with one side saying the first part was the best for being groundbreaking or being the original, with another side choosing a sequel for being an improvement over the original. It's a matter of taste and no solid answer to choose from. On the subject on cherishing the original over the copycats, I have to admit, I've been guilty of it as well. There was a period when I hated Bleach and called it a Yu Yu Hakusho ripoff, but even with the questionable writing choices of Bleach, I think I was a bit too harsh on it on that aspect. Same with Neon Genesis Evangelion. I love the series, but I can't deny when other similar franchises take the same core concepts and do it better, like Darling in the Franxx or Laxaphone. It would be out of place to find an article saying, "This is Evangelion done right," and there's nothing wrong with that. When a new concept is being used, it's usually still in experimental phase. It's not out of place to have franchises start with humble beginnings or try different ideas because they take some time to find their place and experiment on what they can do before they settle on what ends up as what they're known for at later stages. And when someone takes a look at these changes and analyze what went right or went wrong, they can make their work much more focused from the beginning. Now where am I going with this? Well, simply because ever since this controversy came about, many fans switched teams and just straight up said they're not liking The Lion King simply because Kimba the White Lion was first. They didn't comment on its quality, not on which one had the better story, they just based their answer on what came first. And there's the rip-off part of the argument and refusal to acknowledge Tezuka, which as stated cannot be confirmed or denied at the moment, but a great deal chose to hate The Lion King simply because it's not what came first, or not being really original. People, you can like two things at the same time. There's no rule saying you only choose one thing and force yourself to hate the other. You can love Gundam and Macross together. You can love Super Sentai and Power Rangers together. You can love Star Trek and Babylon 5 together. You can love Marvel and DC together. And of course, you can love The Lion King and Jungle Emperor together. Both of them are great on their own merits. Even if you think The Lion King is a ripoff, even after watching this series, and I'm pretty sure people will still deny everything I said and use lazy excuses like straw argument, you probably liked it the first time you saw it as a child until you were told to hate it because someone else told you so. And it seems like I'm not the only one who feels this way, as recent years shows a rise of awareness about this topic, with many fans having enough of this stupid rivalry and grew to accept them together for what they are and put these silly arguments in the past, realizing that it doesn't matter if one ripped off the other, as they're both good and there's no need to be spiteful to one another. Fandom rivalries will always exist, and misinformation will always be there. Nothing will stop this. But what we need to learn is to respect each other's tastes and opinions, and to put more effort in searching for the facts. We may have preferences, but deep inside, we're all fans. Sadly, my dear viewers, we have reached the end of this little series. This was a topic I have wanted to do for a long time, and I'm happy to finally be able to deliver it despite my setbacks. I had fun looking at this misunderstood and underappreciated franchise and the legacy of one of the most influential people on this planet. And I'm really hoping you got to learn something new out of this. And I thank you for being patient with me until the very end. Now, I'm fully aware this won't change how the world views these two franchises in an instant. And yes, I am aware some people will still refuse to believe The Lion King was innocent all this time out of arrogance. Which comes the part where I need to ask for your help. Usually I don't ask you to do this, but for just this instance, I want you to like and share this series of videos around. Making these videos was just the first step. The next step comes from you sharing them across the web. Because it doesn't matter what info you're having, it's completely useless when you don't have someone to receive it. And until we get a complete English release of the franchise, you can experience the English language releases available officially, including the Ghibli Comics release of the first volume of the manga, the English dub of Kimba and Leo the Lion, and the 1997 movie. And if you want to explore more of Osamu Tezuka's world, then I recommend watching Astro Boy, the original and 80s series, and any of the Blackjack franchise. Or if you're into movies, then check out Metropolis, the two Buddha movies, and Boku no Son Goku. And if you want something a bit more recent, then check out 2019's Dororo. Osamu Tezuka's library is massive, and there's no shortage of his stories. Until we meet next time, this was Shinobi03. Take care everyone, and I'll see you next time.